In Dragon Ball Super, the Goku Black arc was extremely polarizing, being loved by some fans and loathed by others. But the most divisive part of the saga was no doubt the ending, which seemed to undo much of what had happened at its start, as Zeno, the Omni King, wiped away the history of Trunks' timeline. With all of Trunks' friends and his entire timeline erased from existence, Whis put forward the idea of creating a new timeline. A timeline where he would tell Beerus of Zamasu before he began to kill the Supreme Kais, allowing the events of the Goku Black arc to never transpire there. And while this idea was accepted by Trunks and Mai, a large question has been left hanging in the air that Dragon Ball Super never addressed. And this question may in fact be a plot hole that the series unintentionally left open. That question is, why didn't they just wish back the future Trunks timeline using the Super Dragon Balls? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break that down. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. As we know, the Dragon Balls have been used in the past to not only resurrect large groups of people, but entire planets as well. So why couldn't the Super Dragon Balls be used to bring back what Zeno had erased? What was the purpose of creating an entirely new timeline which violates the laws of the multiverse when they could have restored what had been taken from Trunks instead? What are some possible reasons? Well, the first that springs to mind is that bringing back a timeline is not within the dragon's power. After all, the Earth Dragon has been shown to have limits to his power multiple times. For example, not being able to find one of the Super Dragon Balls in his own universe. And while the Namekian Dragon is more powerful, there is a big difference between bringing back a planet as we saw in the Buu Saga and bringing back an entire universe. However, the Super Dragon Balls are the original, which are far larger and far more powerful than the Namekians or the Earths. And in fact, when the Super Shenron comes forth, his size nearly fills the entirety of a universe. And additionally, the balls have been described as being able to grant any wish. And while this was originally said to be the case for the Earth Dragon Balls, at no point in time have the Super Dragon Balls been said to have any such limitations as the others. For all we know, the Super Dragon Balls, which were created by the dragon god Zalama, can grant literally any desire, and that the dragon, albeit restricted by his duties, is omnipotent. So if the statement that these Dragon Balls can grant any wish is true, then they must be capable of granting such a wish, even if it exceeds the bounds of the multiverse it currently exists within. And this would even mean that it could recreate what Zeno has erased. However, another possibility ties into why the timeline was erased to begin with. That being that Zamasu had shed his mortal body and merged with the timeline itself, becoming something like an abstract being such as Eternity from Marvel, and even reaching through space and time to the main timeline. At this point, the timeline itself was likely impossible to save, which is perhaps why Zeno erased it to begin with. Thus, bringing back the timeline would probably bring back Zamasu as well. But again, if the Super Dragon Balls can grant literally any wish, this wouldn't be a factor, because Goku and friends can ask for the timeline to be restored without Zamasu, or even at an earlier point, similar to what they did by creating a new timeline. The only difference being that they wouldn't be creating another timeline, but bringing back the real future Trunks timeline. And I doubt the future Zeno would have cared if they did this, because his goal was mainly to eliminate Zamasu, and he'd be too busy playing with his counterpart from the main timeline anyway. If anything, this would be better for the future Trunks timeline, because it wouldn't have a Zeno who would want to erase his universe from existence, which his new timeline likely has. So when you think about it, if Trunks had wished back his timeline, he would have actually made everything better for him in the end, and likely gave his world a much more secure future, and it would still be his world. Because even though Bulma and everyone he knew is there alive in his new timeline, they aren't his real friends and family. That Bulma is no more his mother than Kid Trunks from the main timeline is himself. They're different people from different parallel realities. Everyone Trunks knows but Mai are totally erased from his existence, and while he knows the people he lives with, they're actually strangers to him. So his creation of a new timeline is totally hollow, as all those around him serve as a constant reminder of his failure. But if they had used the Super Dragon Balls to bring back his timeline, or even just his universe, then he would be with the real people he knew and fought alongside. Now again, there are possible limitations to the Super Dragon Balls which have yet to be revealed or retconned into existing. Zamasu is depicted as destroying his Super Dragon Balls in his own timeline, although that doesn't mean that his power is greater than Zalama's or the dragon itself. But I think the real reason behind them not even being referenced after Zamasu destroyed his timeline's version is that Toriyama and the writers wanted to preserve tension. This is the same reason why Toriyama never mentioned New Namek or their Dragon Balls since the Future Trunks storyline began in Dragon Ball Z. Because if the audience knew that there were magical MacGuffins that could simply fix all of Trunks' problems, there would be no tension. And the Future Trunks world has to be steeped in tension due to the nature of his storyline. Now, whether the Dragon Balls could have actually accomplished this feat is unknown, but until they give us some limitations for them, or specifically rule this possibility out, this question will always be hanging in the air. And it could add yet another plot hole to the growing list in the Dragon Ball franchise.
Yeah, and you better subscribe, enable those damn notifications.